Let me tell you exactly what happened last night at the Azteca Stadium in Mexico City. Because if you weren't watching, you missed one of the most absolutely unhinged opening matches in the history of the FIFA World Cup. And if you were watching, you probably still can't fully process what you just saw. 3 red cards, 2 goals, 1 viral referee moment that broke the entire internet before the final whistle even blew, a packed stadium of over 87,000 screaming fans, Shakira performing the World Cup anthem in the opening ceremony, and somewhere in the middle of all of it, a Brazilian referee trying to explain a VAR decision in English over the stadium microphone, and producing what might be the single funniest, most confusing, most perfectly chaotic moment that anyone could have scripted for the first game of a World Cup. We are going to break down every single piece of what happened last night. The goals, the red cards, the VAR controversy, the viral referee moment that the entire internet cannot stop talking about, and what all of it actually means for this tournament going forward. Because here is the thing that most people are missing in all the chaos and the memes. What happened last night was not just entertainment, it was a warning, it was a signal. It was the 2026 World Cup announcing, right from minute 1, that this tournament is going to be unlike anything we have seen before. So if you are ready to actually understand what went down at the Azteca, lock in. This is the full breakdown. The stage was set for something special. Before we even talk about the match itself, let's talk about what this game meant and why the stakes going into it were so high. The Azteca Stadium in Mexico City is one of the most iconic venues in football history. It hosted the 1970 and 1986 World Cup finals. Diego Maradona's Hand of God goal happened on that pitch. Pelé won his second World Cup on that grass. The history of that stadium is so dense, so loaded with legendary moments, that just walking into it as a footballer has to feel like stepping inside a museum that is also somehow on fire. And Mexico was opening the World Cup there, at home, in front of their own people, with the weight of an entire nation on their shoulders and the eyes of the world watching every single move. South Africa were appearing at a World Cup for the first time since 2010, when they drew with Mexico in the opening match, but failed to reach the knockout stage. So this was a rematch of that exact same opening fixture, 16 years later, on the same stage. Except this time, one country was playing at home, and the other was a complete underdog, stepping onto one of the most intimidating pitches in world football. Fox Sports. The atmosphere was electric before a single ball was kicked. The opening ceremony featured World Cup anthem queen Shakira and legendary Mexican rock band Maná. The crowd was already losing their minds before kickoff. 87,000 people inside one of the loudest stadiums on the planet, all of them wearing green, all of them chanting, all of them expecting a party. ESPN. What they got was a party. It just happened to also be a boxing match, a courtroom drama, and a comedy sketch, all rolled into 90 minutes of football. The first goal of the 2026 World Cup. Here is where the match actually starts. Mexico took less than 5 minutes to create the game's first real chance. Israel Reyes whipped a cross in from the right, and Raúl Jiménez got power behind a bouncing ball, forcing goalkeeper Ronwen Williams to tip it around his post. Al Jazeera. The stadium roared. South Africa survived for about 4 minutes. In the 9th minute, Eric Lira won the ball from Yaya Sithole on the edge of the South Africa box. That turnover, that single moment of South African sloppiness in the most dangerous part of the pitch, was all Mexico needed. ESPN. Julián Quiñones struck low through the legs of South Africa goalkeeper Ronwen Williams with less than 9 minutes gone. The Azteca erupted. 87,000 people going absolutely insane in unison. The first goal of the 2026 FIFA World Cup, and it belonged to Mexico. Fox News. Now, let's talk about the man who scored it for a second. Because Julián Quiñones is not a household name outside of Mexico, and his story is actually fascinating. Quiñones is a Colombian dual national who made his debut for the Mexican national team in 2023, and it was met with criticism for not being Mexican. There were fans who questioned his eligibility. There were voices who said he didn't belong in that shirt. He spent the better part of 2 years carrying that criticism every time he stepped onto the pitch for El Tri, Gulf News. And then, in the 9th minute of the opening game of a home World Cup, in front of 87,000 people at the Azteca Stadium, he scored the first goal of the entire tournament. That goal was the earliest to start a World Cup since Philipp Lahm netted for Germany against Costa Rica after 6 minutes in 2006. 20 years between fast openers at the biggest tournament on earth, and Quiñones is the man who broke that record. Fox News. I'm happy and excited to have scored in this packed stadium and with the fans supporting us the whole time, he said after the match. We played well and we achieved this victory as a team. Fox News. Simple words, but they carried the weight of 3 years of doubt and criticism. You could hear it in every syllable. The first half. Control, chaos, and a post. After the goal, Mexico settled into the kind of control you would expect from a host nation playing in front of their own fans against a side that was always going to be outmatched in this environment. At the half-hour mark, Mexico led in possession and were mostly in command of the game. South Africa led in fouls, and both teams had earned yellow cards. Gulf News. But South Africa were not just surviving, they were genuinely competing. Their goalkeeper, Ronwen Williams, was outstanding in the first half, making a series of saves that kept the scoreline respectable. Williams produced a superb save from a Jiménez header, and the post denied Quiñones a second goal from a similar area in the 43rd minute. Al Jazeera. That moment at the post changed everything about the first half narrative. If that ball goes in, the game is over at half-time. South Africa are chasing 2 goals. The crowd is in full party mode, and the second half becomes a formality. Instead, the score stayed at 1-0 going into the break, and South Africa still had a chance. Their fans, scattered throughout the stadium like green islands in a sea of Mexican green, still believed. It was the last comfortable moment they would have for the rest of the afternoon. The second half, where everything fell apart. The chaos started almost immediately. South Africa nearly gave away a second goal straight from the restart when playing out from the back, but Alberto Fidalgo failed to take his chance in the box. The kind of moment that, in hindsight, was a sign of things to come for a team that was about to have the worst 90 minutes of their international football lives. ESPN, because then came the red cards. And this is where the match transformed from a fairly normal opening game into the most talked about football match in the world this morning. Red card number 1, Yaya Sithole. South Africa's hopes of getting back into the game were dented when midfielder Sfefelo Yaya Sithole was shown a straight red card early in the second half after he took down Brian Gutierrez on the edge of the box when through on goal. Fox News. Now here is where you need to understand the full context of this decision. Sithole had already been involved in the first goal, losing the ball in a dangerous position that led directly to Quiñones scoring. His afternoon had already been a nightmare by that point. And then, in a moment of desperation, either trying to make up for the error or simply misjudging his position, he dragged down a Mexican player who was running clean through on goal. Denial of a goal-scoring opportunity. Straight red card. No debate, no VAR review needed. Referee Wilton Sampaio didn't even hesitate. There was just one straight red card in the entire 2022 World Cup in Qatar. Sithole's red card was already matching that total in a single match. US Soccer South Africa down to 10 men. The game, for all practical purposes, should have been over. Mexico had numerical superiority. They had the crowd, they had the pressure, and they still had 40 minutes to add a second goal. The second goal, Raúl Jiménez writes history. The nerves started to creep in for Mexico as the minutes ticked by with the score still 1-0, but in the 67th minute, Jimenez headed in at the far post to double the lead. ESPN. With his 46th international goal and his first in 3 World Cups, Jimenez tied Jared Borghetti for second place on Mexico's all-time scoring list. Fox News. Let that sink in for a moment. Raúl Jiménez, a man who, in September 2020, suffered one of the most horrific injuries in recent football memory, a fractured skull after a collision with Arsenal defender David Luiz that left him in surgery and many people genuinely wondering if he would ever play professional football again. A man who spent over a year rebuilding his career from the ground up, who wore a protective headguard for months after his return, who had to fight not just physically, but psychologically to rediscover who he was as a footballer. That man, in the 67th minute of the opening game of a home World Cup, scored his first World Cup goal in 3 attempts. His first World Cup goal. At 33 years old, after everything he had been through, there were reports that Jimenez was in tears after the goal. Look at the footage of his celebration and you will understand why. This was not just a footballer scoring a goal. This was a man reclaiming a moment the universe had tried to take from him. US soccer 2-0 Mexico. Game over. Except it absolutely was not. Red cards 2 and 3. The circus begins. This is the part of the match that nobody expected. This is the part that produced the memes, the controversy, the viral moments, and the genuine debate that is still raging across social media right now. In the 82nd minute, VAR was used for the first time in the tournament as referee Wilton Sampaio was called to the monitor after Themba Zwane was adjudged to have slapped Mexico's Roberto Alvarado in the face. Now let's be clear about what actually happened in this incident. Zwane attempted to move past Mexico's Roberto Alvarado, but his hand caught Alvarado's face in the process. The referee did not initially issue a red card, but did so after a VAR review. Here is where the expert analysis gets interesting. Former Premier League referee Andy Davies, with over 12 seasons on the elite list, said he felt this was a harsh decision. He said when you strike an opponent and there is contact to the face, there is a danger it could be judged as violent conduct, and you run the risk of receiving a red card. But given the amount of time the referee spent at the screen watching replays, he did not believe Sampaio was completely convinced this was a violent act. So the referee himself wasn't sure. He watched it multiple times, he deliberated, and then he issued the red card anyway. South Africa down to 9 men. In a match they were already losing 2-0, with the opening game of their World Cup return already slipping away. The 9 remaining players on the pitch in green had the look of men who had stopped trying to win the game and started trying to survive it. But here is where it gets absolutely wild. After reviewing the incident on the VAR monitor, Sampaio returned to the pitch and announced his decision over the stadium microphone, in English, as part of FIFA's new referee communication initiative, ESPN, and nobody could understand a single word he said. The viral moment that broke the internet. Judging by their reactions, no South African player seemed to have the slightest idea what the referee was saying. As Sampaio delivered his explanation, cameras zoomed in on Zwane and South African teammate Kuliso Mudau, whose mixture of confusion, disbelief and mild panic quickly became the real highlight of the evening. Al Jazeera. Within minutes, screenshots of their bewildered expressions were spreading across social media. Fans were losing their minds. On social platform X, fans shared hilarious reactions. One user wrote, "I thought he was speaking a brand new language." Another wrote, "Bro didn't understand a single thing the ref was saying." A third said, "I thought he was speaking Aztec or something because I did not get it." ESPN. Now, here is the important thing to understand about this moment before everyone piles on referee Wilton Sampaio. Sampaio's first language is Portuguese, and he remains one of Brazil's most respected referees. He is not a bad referee. He is not some club-level official who stumbled into the biggest tournament in the world. He refereed multiple matches at the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, including the quarter-final between England and France. ESPN FanDuel. This is a man who has refereed at the highest level for years. The problem was not his competence as a referee. The problem was that FIFA decided to implement this new communication initiative, referees announcing decisions on the microphone, without apparently thinking through the fact that most of the referees at this tournament are not native English speakers. The humour stems from the fact that the explanation did not actually explain anything. If the primary goal of the announcement was to make the decision clearer for everyone inside the stadium, it appeared to have the complete opposite effect. ESPN. Think about that for a second. FIFA introduced a brand new system specifically designed to improve communication and transparency, and the very first time it was used at the 2026 World Cup, it created more confusion than if the referee had said absolutely nothing at all. That is the kind of organizational poetry that only FIFA can produce. Within minutes, screenshots of their bewildered expressions were spreading across social media, with fans declaring the moment the first meme of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Al Jazeera. It was chaotic, it was unintentionally hilarious, and it was somehow the perfect symbol for a World Cup opening game that had already decided to abandon all sense of order and normalcy. Red card number 3. The most controversial of all. If you thought the chaos was over after Zwane's red card, you were very wrong. In the dying moments of the game, referee Sampaio produced a baffling decision to dismiss Mexico captain César Montes. It looked like a routine yellow card when he tripped Kuliso Mudau as the South African defender surged towards the box. But the referee went straight for the red for a DOGSO infringement, despite there being covering defenders not far away, and the incident happening wide on the right. US Soccer. 3 red cards, 1 match, the opening game. Let's put that in historical context for a second. In the last 2 World Cup editions, Qatar 2022 and Russia 2018, only 4 red cards were handed out during the entire tournament. This opening game nearly matched that total single-handedly. BBCI. The 3 reds fell just 1 short of the record of 4 at a single World Cup game, the so-called Battle of Nuremberg between Portugal and the Netherlands at the 2006 World Cup. One of the most violent, chaotic matches in World Cup history almost got matched for red cards by what was supposed to be a relatively straightforward opening fixture. BBCI South African coach Hugo Bruce was furious about the controversial decisions. US Soccer. And here is the thing, he had a point. Not about all 3 red cards. Sithole's was fairly clear-cut, but about the pattern of officiating that emerged across the 90 minutes. When you have a Brazilian referee speaking broken English over a microphone in a Mexican stadium, while South African players stare at him like he just landed from another planet, there is something fundamentally broken about the communication infrastructure of the match. VAR got involved once and produced a decision that experienced ex-referees described as harsh. The 3rd red card, for Montes, was given for a DOGSO in circumstances where multiple covering defenders were present, which is exactly the kind of situation where a yellow card is the appropriate punishment, not a straight red. Mexico will have to play their next group stage match against South Korea without César Montes. South Africa will play their next match 2 players down. The disciplinary fallout from this opening game is going to affect both teams for the rest of the group stage, all because of 90 minutes of refereeing that was, at best, inconsistent, and at worst, a genuine talking point about whether the standard of officiating at this tournament is going to be good enough. What this match actually means for the tournament. Now let's zoom out, because this is the part most YouTube channels won't tell you. The chaos of this opening game is a microcosm of what the 2026 World Cup is going to be. And I mean that in the best and worst possible ways. The best. With officiating at the start of a tournament usually setting the tone for the rest of the campaign, the sequence of sending-offs at Estadio Azteca could signal that referees are going to be applying strict standards throughout the 39-day, 104-match spectacle in North America. If that is true, we are going to see more drama, more controversy, more moments that break social media with every passing match day. This is going to be a tournament that never sleeps. The worst. If referees continue applying the kind of inconsistent, VAR-dependent, microphone-enhanced confusion that we saw last night, the football itself is going to get buried under controversy. Players are going to lose matches, not because they were outplayed, but because a referee made 3 decisions in 90 minutes that altered the shape of the game in ways that had nothing to do with the quality of football being played. And there is a deeper issue here that nobody is talking about. The 3 red cards shown to Yaya Sithole, Themba Zwane, and César Montes during Mexico's 2-0 win over South Africa were an unusual sight at a World Cup. When you dig into the details of each decision, only one of them, Sithole's, was truly inarguable. The other 2 were products of a VAR system being applied with a level of strictness that many experienced football people believe is wrong for the game. BBCI. The broader question this raises is simple. At a 48-team World Cup, with more games than ever before, with matches spread across 3 countries and 16 stadiums, can FIFA ensure consistent and fair officiating across 104 matches? Last night's opener suggests the answer, at least so far, is no. South Africa. The real story behind the scoreline. Let me say something that most people covering this game are not saying because they are too busy sharing the memes. South Africa did not deserve to lose this game the way they did. Yes, they were outplayed. Yes, they made the mistake that led to the first goal. Yes, they were always going to struggle against a Mexico side playing at home in front of the loudest crowd in the tournament. The 2-0 scoreline, on paper, looks like a routine Mexican victory. But look at the actual football. Before the red cards, South Africa was competing. Their goalkeeper Ronwen Williams was exceptional. Their defensive shape was disciplined. They created chances. They had a game plan, and they were executing it reasonably well until the red cards changed everything. After the match, South Africa goalkeeper Ronwen Williams said, "We haven't been part of the World Cup for a very long time. We went down, but we kept fighting. We didn't give them anything towards the end. We'll keep fighting. We'll keep going as a team, and we'll be better." Al Jazeera. Read those words carefully. That is not the statement of a team that was hammered. That is the statement of a team that knows they were competitive until the moment the red cards stripped them of their ability to compete. And they are right. South Africa will be without 2 players in their next match of the group. 2 players suspended through red cards in a game that many neutral observers believe was officiated with a level of harshness that was neither fair nor appropriate for an opening fixture. Gulf News. For a team returning to the World Cup for the first time since 2010, for a group of players who fought their way through qualification to earn the right to be at this tournament, to have their opening game defined by refereeing decisions rather than the quality of the football they played, is genuinely disappointing. What Mexico did right. Now let's give Mexico their due credit, because amid all the chaos, it is easy to forget that they actually played good football. The opening goal, regardless of the circumstances that created it, was clinical. Quiñones was sharp, composed, and ice-cold when the chance fell to him. For a player who had spent 3 years carrying the criticism of Mexican fans who questioned whether he really belonged in that shirt, that moment of quality in front of 87,000 people at the Azteca was the perfect answer. Jiménez, at 33 years old, continues to be one of the most reliable strikers in Mexican football history. His headed goal was the work of a complete centre-forward, reading the flight of the ball, timing the run, getting into exactly the right position at exactly the right moment. That is not luck. That is 20 years of professional development paying off in the biggest moment of his career. And the team as a whole, under coach Javier Aguirre, showed the kind of discipline and resilience that hosting nations need in opening matches. It is never easy playing at home in a World Cup opener. The pressure is enormous. The crowd expects a performance as well as a result. And Mexico delivered both, even if the scoreline was partly aided by South Africa's disciplinary collapse. Mexico will advance to the group stage with 3 points and will face South Korea in their next match in Guadalajara. But they will do so without César Montes. And that is a problem they did not need to create for themselves in a game they were already winning comfortably. Gulf News. The Shakira opening and the pre-match moment nobody expected. One more thing we need to address about last night, because it has been generating its own conversation on social media. During the opening ceremony, the USA flag was booed by the crowd as the flags of the 48 participating nations came out at their own World Cup. At the opening ceremony, in a stadium co-hosting the tournament with the United States and Canada. This is the geopolitical reality of the 2026 World Cup that FIFA has been trying to paper over with pop concerts and trophy reveals. The tournament is being hosted by 3 countries that have had significant political tensions in recent years. The crowd in Mexico City made their feelings about their northern neighbors very clear in that moment, and it was noticed around the world. It is not a crisis. It is not going to derail the tournament, but it is a reminder that football cannot be completely separated from the world it exists in. And in 2026, the world is complicated. Final verdict. What last night tells us about the next month. Here is my honest assessment of what the 2026 World Cup opener means for the tournament ahead. The football was decent, the atmosphere was spectacular, the goals were good, the storylines, Quiñones silencing his critics, Jiménez scoring his first World Cup goal after everything he has been through, were genuinely compelling. But the officiating was a problem. 3 red cards in 90 minutes is not a badge of honor for referee Wilton Sampaio. It is a question mark over his judgment and over FIFA's decision to put a referee with a track record of controversial decisions in the most high-profile game of the opening week. Sampaio was also at the center of controversy at the 2022 World Cup quarter-final between England and France, where England fans were so furious at his decisions that they edited his Wikipedia page to say he had lost his guide dog. ESPN. The viral microphone moment was funny. We can all agree on that. But underneath the humor is a genuine indictment of FIFA's planning. You do not introduce a new communication system at the biggest sporting event in the world without ensuring that every referee who might be called upon to use it can actually communicate clearly in the language you have chosen. The fact that this happened in the very first VAR review of the very first game of the tournament is an embarrassment that FIFA is going to have to answer for. And the broader pattern of VAR decisions, particularly the Zwane red card, which experienced officials have described as harsh, suggests that the standard of refereeing at this tournament needs to improve significantly if the football itself is going to get the attention it deserves over the next 39 days. Here is the bottom line. The 2026 World Cup has officially begun. It announced itself with a bang, with drama, with controversy, with goals, with tears, with viral moments, and with the kind of chaotic energy that only the biggest tournament on earth can generate. The Azteca delivered everything it promised. Mexico delivered a victory that their fans will celebrate for days. And Wilton Sampaio accidentally became the most talked about person on the planet for about 12 hours. But the real tournament starts now. Today, the United States hosts Paraguay at SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, in front of what promises to be another electric crowd. Canada opens their campaign in Toronto. The group stage is officially underway, and every single match from here is going to matter. The chaos of last night was just the opening act. The real show has only just begun. If you want the full breakdown of every major match and storyline at the 2026 World Cup, hit subscribe right now. We are going to be covering every game, every controversy, every viral moment, and every tactical decision that shapes this tournament, deeper and more honestly than anywhere else on YouTube. Drop a comment below. What did you think of the opening game? Was the third red card fair? Could you understand a single word the referee said? Let me know everything. This is the World Cup breakdown, and we are just getting started.